So I've got my paint palette here. I'm gonna start sketching with burnt sienna and I'm gonna water it down using my Filbert brush here. And this is for sketching a composition. You want it pretty watered down when you first start. All right, so I just watered down a little bit of this here, and I'll probably water it down a little bit more as I paint with it. My first step is figuring out what I want to actually draw or paint. Your hands make a rectangle. Okay, let me put it right here. Okay, so one hand goes like this, the other hand goes like that. So you can do a portrait orientation this way or a landscape orientation this way. And what you'll do, I'm gonna stand up forward more so you can see. Okay, so what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna use this, close one eye, and only look through one eye to the middle of what I'm doing. I can zoom in and I can zoom out like this, and I wanna zoom in so that I'm just getting the one portion. By doing this with your hands, and I want everybody to do this, when you choose a composition, we close one eye, it really helps you see more clearly what you can do, what your composition is gonna be. For our first one, I want you to choose one of the more simple items that we have here. So probably not the artichoke, probably not the mask, probably not the skull. Okay, this side has some more complicated things. Over here, this is the complicated thing from this side, is the jar and the ice with all of the reflections. This is complicated with all the different components and reflections, and this is complicated. There are some simple things on every side as well. The ball is simple. These geometric shapes are simple. This vase is simple. The shoe is simple. That sphere is simple. The rock is simple. So I do have some simple things laid out as well. To start with, we will be starting with just some simple ones. So I have used my hands to identify the portion that I'm going to show. And I know for this one, it's gonna look better to have it in a portrait composition rather than a landscape composition. So we're gonna be doing 4 here. So in this space up here, I'm gonna start by just sketching out. I'm gonna tilt that up just a little bit more. There we go, okay. All right. And watered down is what we're using because we can't erase anything, okay? And as I'm doing this, it's part of why I'm standing sideways, so I can just turn my head a little bit to be able to see this, and then turn my head a little bit to see that without having to move my body, without having to like peer around behind anything. Billy, please put your phone away. Okay, so I'm gonna start to sketch out my composition. With just some very simple outlines. I'm gonna only do part of the shoe. And that's for the background. Okay, so simple sketch first, right? That just gets the layout. This is the dead center, and we don't want our items to be in the dead center. Okay. Now I can start to use some heavier paint. And I can look and see, all right, it's darker down here. It's darker along the bottom of the shoe. It's darker back behind the shoe over here. And so I'm just using more of the full weight right now. This part is all dark. It does need to have a little bit of water so that it'll slide on this paper, because you'll see it dries really, really fast. So I first did lines. Now I'm filling in some value so that those lines are gonna start to disappear now. And at this point, I can be more precise about where tops are, where my items actually exist. I still have lines here that I need to address. All of these, those lines have all disappeared because I filled a value up to the edge of it. Still need to do that a little bit more. So the shoe is darker. And right now, I'm not really worried about texture. I'm not really paying much attention to texture. I'm just looking at value and shape. And that's it. And I chose a complicated item right here. If I were to make this more simple, I'm actually gonna change my mind right now and take that away and pretend that that's not even there. So I'm just gonna paint over that completely. I'm doing this because it's okay for you to change your mind as you're in the middle of your compositions, and I'm gonna choose to do this as my third item instead. I like the shape of it more. And it's gonna be a little easier to do. So now you can choose to either do the darks or the lights. It's your choice. I'm gonna choose to work on the lights first because one of my items that I chose is also a very light item and I need to make it a little bit bigger, you know, because I changed my mind. So I'm taking some white and the brightest part, a little bit of a shadow there. And there's an item on top of this, but I have to pretend like it's not there and paint what's in that space anyway. There's some lightness on the shoe right here. There's some lightness on the shoe, kind of like this. There's a little bit of a highlight along the shoe right in here. And then now this piece over here, because I'm drawing it now, I actually have to start to think about where those values are at. Now this huge vase has a lot going on with it, but I'm gonna, in my mind's eye, try and simplify it. And I don't need to do all of that texture that shows up there. Just kind of showing where the values are at. Okay, I got the lightest parts in. Now I'm gonna add the darkest parts, and I'm gonna take the black and brown and mix those together. You don't wanna go straight in with black too fast. So there's a dark there. There's dark shadow down here on the ground. Gonna do pure black background. That's something that I'd like for you guys to do as well. The background is gonna be probably just a small bit, but make it as dark as you can get it. Got a little bit of a ground that I'm gonna put in right here. So there's like a bit of a horizon line. And then I'm gonna pop this guy out a little bit more. I see a cast shadow on the ground down here. The nice thing about using the black is that you can get the edges of your items pretty precisely without having to actually draw the item itself. In the edge, you just take the background up to it instead. So I'm just blocking out lights and darks, lights and darks. Need to do a little bit more with the shoe here. See, that tip of the shoe I didn't even have painted until now. Notice that my paint is having less and less water as I layer on top. I want the bottom of that shoe to like really be visible. So I'm gonna make crispy edges in some places here. Done.